So on the subcommittee recommendations, it looks like, Patrick, you guys have a recommendation?
Yes, I invited Amanda J. Marshall from the subcommittee for people with mental illness subcommittee, the non-PSEP member co-chair, to come speak to us about this recommendation.
My name is Amanda Marshall. I throw the J in there because I am an attorney in Oregon, and there's a second Amanda Marshall attorney. And so I am Amanda J. Marshall, and it's nice to meet you all. I was asked to co-chair with Patrick on the subcommittee for people with mental illness, and we have come up with a recommendation that we would like to put forward in this committee and potentially put forward to Ted Wheeler and Chief Danielle Outlaw. At our May meeting, we were able to speak with Donna Martin, and Donna Martin is the sister of Andre Gladen, who was killed by police on January 6th while in the middle of a mental health crisis interaction with the police. She talked about a couple of interactions that they had with the justice system, one of which was they had a meeting with Ted Wheeler and Chief Danielle Outlaw the purpose was to apologize, to have a meeting with them to talk about kind of the tragedy that happened. And I believe that it was meant to be an apology, and it didn't really turn out that way for Ms. Martin. She didn't feel like that was very effective. She was told, and I believe these are the words, "We are sorry this had to happen," which is not very heartwarming or friendly. And I'm going to come back to talk about what she had to say about that in a minute. The other interaction that they had was when the family was traveling to Portland, and Andre's mother has some health conditions and makes it difficult for her to travel. They were traveling to Portland to find out the grand jury decision about whether the officer would be indicted for his actions with Andre. They had not made it to Portland, and they got a phone call while they were in the car. Mom got a phone call that said, "Oh, by the way, they're not indicting him." And as far as I know, that was the entire phone call. They had not made it to Portland yet. They didn't have any interaction with the DA's office after that had anything to do with an apology or an acknowledgement that that was not a very sensitive way to deal with that. It was a big deal to the family. Ms. Martin had expressed some of her ideas about how this could have gone better or what they were looking for. She felt that the phone call especially, the family felt deeply disrespected by that. This is a huge thing for them. Their son was killed. And they really wanted, their goal was not, it's not really all that out there. They want someone to acknowledge, they want the police to acknowledge that this tragedy happened, that somebody lost their life, and that can be preventable. Because in this case, he was in the middle of a mental health crisis, and they were called because he was in the middle of a mental health crisis, and somebody ended up dying. And so she was saying that for her family, she would like if there was a more comprehensive process or maybe a more detailed process for apologies when tragedies like this happen and somebody dies or gets seriously injured in police interactions. And so we came up with a recommendation along with her comments. And our recommendation from the subcommittee is that it would be made bureau practice for the chief within 24 hours of a use of lethal force or serious injury to send a written letter of condolence. And I like say condolence like that because I'm an attorney and I understand that we can't ask the chief of police to apologize for actions of police officers. But just something that acknowledges that this tragedy happened and a life was lost, and that is indeed a tragedy. And then within 48 hours, we would like the chief of police to offer a meeting with the family members if they want it, to have a face-to-face meeting to recognize that there's grief and loss that has happened in this interaction. We would also ask that both the mayor and the chief of police acknowledge to the community that a tragedy has occurred. And again, we're not asking them to apologize for police action. They'll never do that because their lawyers will tell them not to. But just acknowledgement that this happened is a tragedy. And then we would also ask that a personal apology may be made to the family if that is what they want. We're leaving that open. If they don't want that, then obviously nobody needs to give it to them. They may not want it because it's such a hard time. It's they may not want to talk to the police because they're mad at the police. But one of the things that Ms. Martin really talked about was it would be really nice to have had a written, crafted apology, letter of condolence that was tailored towards them, and that she could have in writing, that it wouldn't be something that was just, we're sorry this had to happen. So that's our proposal, is that with the last piece being that we would really like for the police to do something substantive to change the way that things have happened in regard to that particular incident. We don't know what that change would be, so we're not dictating what that change would be, because that's going to be something we'll have to, move forward. The police will have to move forward with. But we want that to be done with transparency. We want the family to know, here's what is going on. Here's what they're trying to change. And for the community to know that too. So that it's not just a closed door policy where folks are going, well, they said they're going to change something, but we don't know if that's really going to happen. So that's what we have that we wanted to present to PSEP. We are excited about this recommendation. We really want to put it out there. We would love to send it on in about 2 weeks, unless we get a big kibosh from the committee. We'd love to have comments and feedback. The written out recommendation was up on the table out there. I'm sure you all have it. Folks out here may have it as well. So that's where we're at. That's what we'd love to do, and I'd be happy to take questions, comments, suggestions.
So we have some PSEP comments.
One logistical thing, we are at time, this is a very complicated, I think, recommendation, one that deserves a full airing.
I agree.
Are we going to extend time tonight, or should we say that we're going to put this higher on the agenda next month? Do folks have thoughts on that?
I think
I'm sorry, I'm
higher.
not understanding.
So we're time is out right now, and we really want to give this time to have comment, discussion. So the recommendation is we put it higher on the agenda next month.
I can't ask Amanda to come back, but I can definitely give it the second verse, same as the first next month, if that's what's needed. Sorry.
Yeah, I would have just, I was recognized at the time, and I thought that once we started this that we were going to just finish it. But in the future, I would just recommend that we just take a time check if we ever get within this close of time, so we don't present halfway through and have you do that and then make you get back up there. So apologize for that. But
No, I appreciate the presentation, and I think it just so much so that it deserves time. I mean, I have several questions that I'd love to talk about. Maybe others do as well. I'm trying to be sensitive to the clock too.
Right. Yeah, I had a few comments and suggestions. I loved it, and I think it deserves more time. It's due diligence.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think with consideration of the form that we just created, that Luciana created for the policy recommendation, will allow us more time to be thoughtful about any feedback and maybe compare what the other jurisdictions might have done, but I think this is a great idea.
One thing I would add, yeah, in the meantime, what you can do, and I don't know if you've done this, have you guys talked to PPB lawyers about what they can and can't say?
That would be something PPB should probably be doing after we give them the recommendation, I would assume.
Yeah, and I think you could cut down that time of like, even if this is even possible to do, with just seeing like where are their legal limits. Maybe it's something, since we're not gonna go through it all today, that was one of my questions was, what are the legal limits of what, you had already mentioned it kind of that.
But that
What-
doesn't really define the recommendation, though.
Right, so I know that they will not, I have never talked to their lawyers, but they would never let the police admit liability. So
Would
we're not
this be doing
asking
that?
for them to admit liability.
No.
We're asking them to give some condolences to the family that they lost a loved one.
Yeah, I would ask like, what is their policies around that, and just see if there's anything, because that was gonna be one of my questions.
And I agree, Luciana. I've heard before that there's sort of a gag order in some ways while the district attorney reviews it, while internal affairs reviews it, and see if they can file criminal charges against the police officer, all these things, and the police have been told not to speak for X number of days, but I just don't know enough about what that might be and how that would impact this particular request.
And what I would say is that
She
that
can-
gag order is probably part of the reason why we're here as PSEP, is because that gag order is part of that creating that relationship where we're at now. And I see that as a problemed relationship now. So I see this as a way to improve that relationship.
And I
So
agree. I just
we're going
curious.
deeper and deeper into, so that's why it deserves full-time due diligence to really get through some of this. And thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.